Were you always the too sensitive one? The one blamed for problems that were never yours? And the most isolating part, did it feel like no one, ever, was on your side? If you've ever felt like the black sheep of your family, this video is for you. We're going to cover 3 things. First, why this happens, the psychology behind the scapegoat role. Second, how this role follows you into your adult life. And third, 3 practical numbered strategies you can use to break free and start healing today. You're not imagining it, and you're not alone. Let's get started. Section 1, the why understanding the scapegoat role. So, what does it mean to be the family scapegoat? In psychology, the scapegoat is sometimes called the identified patient. This is a critical distinction. The family identifies one person as the source of its problems, but that person is rarely the actual issue. Instead, they become a convenient container for all the family's unaddressed dysfunction, shame, and pain. Think of it like a pressure cooker, a family dealing with issues it can't or won't face. Addiction, marital problems, generational trauma builds pressure. To keep the system from blowing up, it needs a release valve. The scapegoat is that valve. By projecting all the negativity onto one person, the family can cling to a fragile sense of normalcy. They can tell themselves, "We're a healthy family. It's just that one who has all the issues." You weren't the problem. You were the container. This is why it feels like no one believes you. Because they can't. Believing you would force them to look at the real problems. For your parents or siblings, their sense of safety might depend on the story that you are the problem. A sibling might side with an abusive parent to avoid becoming the next target, or to protect their status as the golden child. They participate because it's easier to sacrifice you than to challenge the entire system and risk their own place in it. So when you speak the truth, you aren't just sharing your feelings. You are threatening the family's entire narrative. And for a dysfunctional system, protecting that story is more important than protecting you. Section 2, the long shadow, how the role follows you. Here's the messed up part. That role doesn't just disappear when you leave home. It leaves a deep imprint, a long shadow that follows you straight into your adult life. Ever find yourself at a job where you're somehow the one taking the fall for team failures? Or in relationships where you always feel like you're too much and find yourself constantly apologizing? Sound familiar? That's not a coincidence. It's a psychological pattern called repetition compulsion. Our brains seek what's familiar, even if it's painful, without realizing it. You might unconsciously recreate the same dynamics you grew up with, casting yourself in that same scapegoat role over and over again. But the most damaging part? It gets internalized. The constant blame teaches you to blame yourself. You end up with a harsh inner critic that sounds suspiciously like the very people who put you down. You might struggle with chronic self-doubt, anxiety, and a nagging feeling that you are fundamentally flawed. Because your accomplishments were likely ignored, you might have given up on your potential, or you became a relentless overachiever just to prove your worth. And then there's the gaslighting, that psychological manipulation where your reality is constantly denied. When you're told over and over that what you saw didn't happen, or that what you felt was an overreaction, you start to lose trust in your own mind. This is the core of when no one believes you. Eventually, you stop believing yourself. This chronic stress and invalidation can contribute to long-term effects, sometimes described as complex PTSD or CPTSD. Section 3, the turning point, reclaiming your narrative. If this is hitting home, I want you to take a deep breath, because this is where the healing begins. It starts by changing the question from "what is wrong with me?" to "what happened to me?" This isn't about blame, it's about correctly assigning responsibility. The scapegoat role was never about who you are. It was about your family's inability to handle its own baggage. You weren't the problem, you were just assigned to carry it. Here are 3 strategies to reclaim your narrative. Strategy number 1, radical acceptance. First, you have to fully accept that this role was forced on you. It was not, and never was, a reflection of who you are. Your sensitivity wasn't a weakness. It was an awareness of the dysfunction. Your truth-telling wasn't troublemaking. It was integrity. A practical takeaway. Grab a journal. At the top of a page, write Rolls Fife was given verses, who I am. On one side, list the labels. The troublemaker. Too sensitive. The problem. On the other, list who you really are. Perceptive, honest, resilient. This is an act of declaring your true identity. Strategy number 2, the power of boundaries. Healing requires safety, and safety often means distance. This might look like low contact, limiting interactions, or no contact at all. This is incredibly hard because you've been programmed to feel guilty. But hear this, setting a boundary is not an act of aggression. It is an act of self-preservation. A practical takeaway. For low contact, switch to text instead of calls. If you get a guilt-tripping message, you can reply with a simple, "I'm not able to discuss this right now." That's a complete sentence. You don't need to defend it. If they continue to push, another tool is the broken record technique. Calmly repeat your boundary. As I said, my decision is final. Your peace is non-negotiable. Strategy number 3, re-parenting your inner child. As the scapegoat, you were denied what every child deserves: validation, safety, and unconditional love. Reparenting is about learning to give those things to yourself. It means becoming the compassionate, validating parent you never had. A practical takeaway. Imagine you make a small mistake at work. Your programmed immediate reaction might be, "I'm so stupid, I ruin everything." Reparenting is stepping in right there and saying to yourself, "Hey, it was just a mistake. It doesn't define your worth. What's the lesson here?" You are actively replacing your inner critic with an inner champion. You don't need anyone else's validation for your story to be true. This is how you take your power back. The journey from family scapegoat to your authentic self isn't a short one. It involves grieving the family you wished you had and bravely building a new identity based on your own truth. But picture what life is like on the other side. It's trusting yourself. It's waking up and not being at war with the voice in your head. It's relationships built on mutual respect, where you're loved for who you are, not for the role you play. It's a life where your sensitivity is finally seen as a superpower, and your past becomes a source of incredible resilience. You survived a role you never auditioned for. Your strength is proven by you being here, seeking a path to heal. Healing isn't about changing who you are. It's about finally becoming the person you were always meant to be. If this video resonated with you, you're not just watching a video, you're finding your community. Consider subscribing to join fellow survivors and thrivers. Your story matters. If you feel comfortable, share a piece of it in the comments. You will find you are not alone. Thank you for being here and for taking this brave step for yourself.